you'll know that we Finns are often described as being cool, calm, and collected. And I see at least 2 former Swedish prime ministers and a former Danish prime minister in the audience, and you can ask them, I'm sure they will agree. Now, when the going gets tough, a Finn goes in the sauna and takes an ice bath. We consider it a good way to clear the mind, take a breather, and try to understand what is going on in the world. And that's what I'll try to do today. Not in the sauna or the ice bath, but here from the podium. I think this goes quite well with the theme of this year's Raisina dialogue, Sanskara, assertion, accommodation, and advancement, just like the chairman just noted. I think we have to sit down during these 3 days, take the world as it is, and make the best out of it in a dignified manner. So today I will kick off the Raisina dialogue by focusing on 2 things. First, I will attempt to identify the problem. So what's wrong with the world order today? And second, I will try to outline a number of possible concrete solutions for the future, which you can then tear apart in your dialogue. In both of these parts, I will reflect on India and what India teaches the world. It's an attempt by someone who's been born and bred into the Western dominated liberal world order to understand how the world is really changing and be open about it. My thesis is very simple. I believe that the global South will decide what the next world order will look like. And India, as a major power, will be a major, or if not the force in deciding whether the world will tilt towards conflictual multipolarity characterized by deals, transactions, and spheres of interest, or whether the world will tilt towards a new cooperative, fair, and representative multilateral world order based on international institutions, rules, and norms. The policy choices that India and other key powers make truly matter in this time of transition. They will set the direction of the future. Let me begin by stating the obvious. The world is changing, much like it did after World War I, World War II, and the Cold War. It'll take a few days to settle, but only 2 things are sure. One, there are more players who have agency than they were after World War I or World War II, or indeed the Cold War. And number 2, the starting point for a new settlement is different from 1918, 1945, and 1989. The global power balance has shifted. The global South has both demography and economy on its side. I mean, here we are in a country which is portraying growth rates of 7%, probably projecting all the way to 2047. And at the same time, it's the biggest democracy in the world. But my argument is that the era of a Western-dominated world is over. That's the disruption. This is obvious, but it will take some time to sink in across the West. Nostalgia can give us lessons, but it rarely provides us with solutions. So I think that a good starting point to any analysis is to deal with the world as it is, not with a world that we would wish it to be. So we live in a time of power politics, a time where might seems to make right. Violence has once again become a go-to foreign policy tool used around the world with very little restraint. In Ukraine, Russia is trying to subjugate a sovereign country through a war that is a blatant violation of international law. The way this war will end will have major consequences, not only in Europe, but globally. It is in all of our interests that the outcome does not reward the aggressor. In the Middle East, the events have taken rapid turns. We're now witnessing a regional escalation with countries who were pushing for diplomatic solutions. I had the chance to speak to the President of the United Arab Emirates yesterday and the Emir of Qatar today, while getting insights from the Prime Minister of India on how he sees the situation. In Sudan, the vicious circle of domestic power battles and regional rivalry have led to one of the deadliest conflicts of our time, forcing millions of people to leave their home. Gone are the days when international politics were predictable, even to some degree. Now each new day may bring new surprises and challenges to tackle. This is, of course, interesting for us who deal with international relations, but in terms of global stability, it is an ongoing challenge. One of my favorite foreign ministers, Dr. Jaishankar, has remarked, and let me quote once again, "Europe has to grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems, but the world's problems are not Europe's problems." End of quote. See, this is what you get. You give speeches and you quote someone else and immediately everyone applauds. I wholeheartedly agree with you, Dr. Jaishankar. What we need to recognize is that all the three examples that I mentioned, Ukraine, Middle East and Sudan, and many other wars and conflicts are all of our problems. We need to work together to solve them. We can see the effects of Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine on fertilizers, on oil prices. The same thing we're now seeing, of course, with the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. Now, does all of this mean that the liberal world order, the one we created after World War II, is dead? No, it doesn't. The fact that the rules are broken does not make the whole system null and void, any more than someone getting caught for speeding makes speeding limits irrelevant. If we give up on international rules, the current world order would collapse, but we are far from that. Now, none of the previous world orders have been perfect. We should drop the illusion of a utopian order in which all 200 nation states of this world live in harmony, peace, and eternal love. Instead, we should try to figure out how best to contain power in an imperfect world. When I say we should drop the illusion of a perfect order, I should probably specify. I mean we in the West. To us, the change we're living through has come as somewhat of a shock. History didn't end as many expected in 1989. For decades, we got to enjoy relative peace and stability, functional global supply chains, and stable alliances. At times, we offered advice and criticism from our ivory towers to those faced with a different reality. Now, our holiday from history is over. Instead of preaching and teaching, it's time for us to learn from others, and India would be a good starting point. India has been under no illusions. For your entire independence, you have based your foreign policy on a pragmatic and realistic worldview. You've showed the rest of the world what strategic caution and safeguarding autonomy means, all the while championing multilateralism and global cooperation. It is time that we all became a little bit more Indian. Whether you call it non-alignment or multi-alignment, you've been careful not to rely solely on the goodwill of one partner or bloc. You have invested in your own security and actively developed partnerships in many directions. Your approach makes sense. You represent 1/5 of the global population, together with Finland. And you cannot be a mere follower. You have to be an active and independent actor. The Europeans have now also been taught a lesson from India. Passivity is not a strategy. We have to develop our capabilities, avoid harmful dependencies, and strengthen our global partnerships. And we have to continue investing in our alliances. Indeed, for a country like Finland, the collective security that NATO provides is a necessity. the economic clout that the EU projects is a must. Despite not being part of a formal alliance, India does not isolate itself. Quite the contrary. Your power is based on active engagement. A timely example of this is, of course, the EU-India strategic partnership that took major steps forward earlier this year with the conclusion of a comprehensive free trade agreement and the launch of a security and defense partnership. I think this was huge. This agreement and the other major trade agreements signed by both India and the EU in the past year underline the fact that we still believe in multilateral cooperation and the benefit that it brings. Our deal is not just the mother of all deals, but a strategic choice and a gesture that opens up a new era in our relationship. Together, we're building a partnership that can set an example to the rest of the world. A partnership that is built on mutual respect and common interest and serves to strengthen the multilateral system, not to undermine it. We refuse to believe that future will only belong to, say, two great powers, while the rest of us are left to choose our sides. This does not hold true now, and it will not hold true in a decade or two. We should not allow it. So, let me then move on to my second part. So, a few concrete suggestions on how we can begin shaping the new world order. Some of the proposals are of substance and others are of process. India and Finland, we might be geographically different, but we understand what it means when power goes unchecked. We have both gone through difficult periods in history and fought for our democracy, equality, and sovereignty. We don't want to see these values forgotten. Finland's foreign policy is based on what Samir Saran noted earlier, values-based realism. We stand by our values that we consider important and central to us: democracy, equality, justice, human rights, and freedom, just to name a few. At the same time, we are ready to engage in a dialogue and cooperation with countries that do not necessarily share our values. The aim is to find a balance between values and interests in a way that prioritizes principles but recognizes the limits of power and respect the reality of the world's diverse cultures and histories. You cannot solve the world's big problems, such as conflicts, technology, energy, or climate change, just alone. In many ways, India has been applying values-based realism for far longer than we have. Thousands of years ago, Kautilya's Artha Shastra recognized that the international system is competitive and interest-driven. It called for a pragmatic and realistic approach to statecraft. At the same time, the ruler's ultimate duty was to values and ethics guided by the concept of dharma. This marriage of interests, values, and principles is evident in how India works as a constructive founding member of the UN and one of the biggest contributors to global peacekeeping operations. Defending multilateralism is in your DNA. How then do we apply values-based realism in the multilateral system? I have three substantive proposals. Proposal number one, we need to improve representation. International institutions must not be one more tool of power for the powerful. Currently, their power structures reflect a world as it was, not as it is. The voices of the global south must be heard much louder than today. The obvious place to start is the UN Security Council. I have proposed 2 permanent seats for Asia, 2 for Africa, and 1 for Latin America. And let me be clear, India should have a permanent seat in the UN Security Council. Equally, we should reform the Bretton Woods institutions. The countries where the future of the world economy is made should have a bigger say. We also urgently need to reform the WTO to work better for all of us. Currently, the rules-based trade system is not delivering as it should, and trade is being wielded as a geopolitical tool, an instrument of power. In this area, India's leadership is needed. Second, we must create rules and norms that bring stability